This video to Pyro, kind of an unusually long video for Pyro. I did spell out his philosophy some more. I mean, he has this philosophy that's basically Randian, selfishness wins kind of philosophy, except he's modified it so that there's these ranges of perspective. And that it basically says, yeah, your self-interest first, and then the rest of these interests later on. And it's just, I think it's just kind of arbitrary. I don't think there's any real logic behind it. I mean, this whole notion that we are, by nature somehow, our selfishness it tends towards a better world is, I think, just complete nonsense. The very reality of what nepotism has done to this world just makes that so obvious. I mean, that selfishness is just so stupid and so unproductive. All of our attachments are sort of like that. I mean, most of the people we care about for kind of silly reasons, very circumstantial reasons. And, if we could know the rest of the world, we would care about them, but we just can't have any kind of personal relationship with 7 billion people. So we have to use our philosophy and understand the reality of what that 7 billion signifies and represents. And we have to give them a reality in our mind. Okay, we can't wait for a feeling to arise, a self-interest to arise. We have to do it out of a principle or out of an understanding. And so it kind of just makes this whole thing kind of silly, I think. This idea that somehow he's trying to protect some sort of native ideological principle, fundamental principle. I think that's just completely flawed. Our first obligation is to the universe. That's the first obligation. If we can identify what is right and wrong for the universe, then that's our first commitment. And if the right thing to do was to eat your own children to save the universe, that would be your obligation. Okay, that is the ultimate definer of productivity, of usefulness, of value, of good and evil, is the end result, the net product, as I pointed out in the last video. It has to do with this net product thing. What's the ultimate end? And that's where, again, his equation doesn't make much sense. I mean, we could argue about, to the slave owner, slavery is very productive, very efficient. He has no self-interest to give a damn about the circumstance of his slaves. It would be silly to sit there and try to contrive some self-interest. Like, well, maybe in 500 years his kids will be born slaves, so he should be against slavery because his kids might be slaves in 500 years because they would be owned instead of being the owner, or some other kind of bullshit notion. I mean, if you have to go down that, if you have to create bizarre scenarios to defend a principle, then forget it. It's a principle just worth letting go. Just let go of it. We live in a world where, it's all dependent on these premises, what you value. All right, and if you value the welfare of conscious, sentient creatures, you have to do that based on what they are displaying, not what you're displaying as an emotion, not what you're displaying as a personal feeling, but what they possess. Okay, their value, their innate need, their innate qualification for concern. And the qualification can't be, I'm genetically related to it. I mean, that's just such bullshit. I mean, it has the same color eyes as me, therefore I will care. I mean, that's crap. Obvious crap. I mean, it's unintelligent. It's unwise. It's silly. It's crude. That is ape psychology. That's simple. That is ape psychology. So in my opinion, Pyro, the premise of what you're arguing is the root of the problem. The reason why the world sucks is because people are acting out of their self-interest. The reason why we don't have a more direct democracy or an obligation to be honest or to be any of these things is because people don't want to do that, because it's in their self-interest to have a system they can abuse and manipulate. They do not want to be obligated by principle. They want to still be able to cheat for themselves. All right, it is because of your philosophy. It's because of this selfishness first bullshit that the world looks this way. I'll just bring up a current event kind of thing, with this whole auto bailout And it's just so pitiful to have these, state senators and congressmen talking about, well, people in our state only get $12 an hour. Why should I bail out people getting $30 an hour? And see, again, self-interest. It's not about principle. No, it's about their self-interest, the self-interest of their citizens. Fuck the citizens in some other state. All right? So it's not about principle and the fact that people should be paid more money. Maybe the people in your state should get some more goddamn money. No, it's about, we don't have ours. So until we have ours, we're going to, we're not going to let you have yours. But I am opposed to the bailout, just for principle. I'll say that. Just because all we're bailing out is old pension promises. All right, the companies cannot be competitive. It's impossible. They're not going to be able to compete with a new company startup or a foreign company because they have pension obligations that are just suffocating. Okay, the business is operating at a 50% disadvantage. So how can General Motors or Ford be competitive in a world environment where they have this huge liability of old promises they really can't realistically keep in this competitive environment? There's just no freaking way. So it's just, all we're doing is bailing out pensions, and we're bailing out pensions to unions that they had fought the good fight, they had achieved fairness, and then they went 2 or 3 steps over the fairness line and started taking way too much. We got government employees now that get, their benefits are more than their damn salary. I mean, it's outrageous how these unions have corrupted systems and broken them entirely. And the auto workers are a prime example of just taking too much, going too many steps too far. And it's really this whole idea that we should depend on unions to reform working conditions is bullshit anyway. We should have humane definitions of working environments built into our government, built into our Constitution. All right, the rights of workers should be a fundamental fact of our existence, not something dependent on how many workers you have or how capable you are of extorting and blackmailing. How many, just because your job qualification requires 3 months of training and some business can't afford to train a whole new crew for that 3 months, and so they will abide to your extortion. I mean, that should not be the equation that defines fairness. Fairness should be a definition by rational human beings. But we're never going to get there as long as we keep thinking selfishness first. As long as every individual is looking from their personal perspective, then we will continue to tyrannize each other. All right? We have to have fundamental respect for the principles of our fundamental equality, the principle of the fundamental need to serve needs first, all right, and then to worry about wants, and then to worry about, have a progression of give a damn that makes some sort of rational sense, and that is not completely personally focused. I mean, if everybody's going to live like a selfish bastard, and everybody's going to say, no, I like lying because I could take advantage of lying sometime, then, that's just the same thing as saying that, let's not outlaw thievery because I'm sometimes a thief. They're just advocating systems that they can manipulate and play, and that's why they don't get fixed. That's why we live in a shithole. It's because each individual sees some advantage in it. Well, I gain an advantage because I'm able to exploit the guys that don't have kids, and I can tax them more, and I can use that money to take care of my kids, or some other equation where they say, I got a self-interest out of this broken principle. And it's this disregard for principle. I mean, we've got to make the principles clear, and then we've got to write them in really hard stone marble and never allow them to be compromised, because that's a key focus here. All of these problems are the product of a disregard for principle. I mean, I can go through the court system stuff. It's like almost all 12 of my new channels. I mean, the liabilities that exist because of a lack of respect for principles. I mean, the principles are basically the rules of the game. The fundamental definition of fairness, and so that's what's lacking. And until people can accept that yes, I will accept the burdens of fairness, that's all it takes. Accepting the burdens of fairness. I'm not supposed to be a drunk on the road, so I understand why people have to be tested for their sobriety, and I'll accept that burden as the price to keep drunks from killing people on the highway. I mean, it's these little equations, that we have to sacrifice something to this idea of civilization, to the idea of progress. And what have we done instead? We've borrowed $11 trillion from a future that we had no right to steal from, because we had no regard for the principle involved. If it would have been fine to borrow the money if we had some intention to pay it back. But we never had that intention. In bad times, we don't want to pay it back, and then when there's good times, we don't want to pay it back. We always just wanted the tax cut, the personal, give me more, okay, fuck the future, and that's what we said, and collectively. And that's the problem with selfishness. It doesn't fucking work. So I don't see any point in encouraging people to think about themselves first, and that somehow, if they just moderate that a little bit, it'll all come out as a pleasant worldview. It won't. It doesn't work that way. If we allow our self-interest to rule how we behave in the world, we will live in a shithole.